A woman in a loose flapping cardigan hovers by the rubbish bin, holding a takeaway coffee. Another pauses by her. I didn't think they'd summon me at my age. The younger woman twitches a brief smile. Come on, we'll be in it together, says the older woman. Chapter 1. Jake. Jake added Dice Bros to his search. He clicked on the most recent news article about the case. It said the police had charged the boys involved in the teen sex game. Jake had lost track. He hadn't realised it had progressed that far. 4 youths were facing charges for rape and sexual assaults and making a video. Jake scrolled all the way through and then clicked back to the search results. The first Jake heard of the Dice Bros, although not by that name, was when he was thumbing through the local newspaper as a way of putting off the mowing for a few more minutes. It was one of those summary sidebar stories, stating that police had made inquiries at 2 local high schools following allegations that a teen sex game had gone awry. There was a number to call if you knew more information. Jake was curious, but there was no detail, and it wasn't his children's school, so, sighing, he closed the paper and headed down to the bottom section of the garden by the sleep-out, where he'd left the mower. The mowing was part of his preparation for summer. By the time Tilly came back from her mother's, he'd planned to have the deck washed and oiled, chairs scrubbed, lawns mown, a present for his wife. A shiny, ordered garden. Instead, in the nearly 3 weeks of her absence, all he'd managed was to weed the vegetable boxes and then overcrowd them with parsley, lettuce, corn and tomato seedlings. As Jake mowed, he thought that somehow the weekends seemed to both stretch and bulge without Tilly here to shape them. He wasn't even sure how today had drifted away. He had spent several hours flicking between the test and the tennis while he waited for her to call. Not that she'd had anything new to report. Her mother was still in ICU in Christchurch Hospital, and Tilly was still in emergency mode. He could hear it in her voice, could tell by the odd times she was ringing. Jake had lost that sense of urgency. He was in limbo, not knowing how long his wife would be away, nor how they would manage if her mother was discharged. The mower was heavy. The catcher must be nearly full. He wondered what food there was for dinner. It would only be him and TJ, because Annalise was at a sleepover. Jake had been especially glad of that when TJ had turned up with his new girlfriend, Melissa. Melissa and Annalise were in the same year, 2 years below TJ, and Annalise's shorts were as skimpy as Melissa's skirt. But it was the way Melissa's skirt swished as she sashayed past Jake on the way down to the lake that made him almost worry for TJ. You could practically see her knickers. Perhaps, just this once, he'd send TJ and Melissa for takeaways. TJ wasn't meant to drive Melissa on his restricted license, but he'd taken to dropping her home, and the Indian wasn't much further. Then tomorrow Jake would do a shop and wash the deck, and that reminded him that he'd left the laundry neglected in the washer all day. Tilly should be here. There was just too much stuff, with the kids and work as well. Jake shoved the lawnmower forwards, and as he did, there was a cracking, splintering noise. The mower spluttered, spluttered, and stalled. Jake swore, and pulling it back, saw he'd run over a stick with a piece of garden twine attached. The other half was probably wrapped around the mower blades. It would be one of the bows and arrows TJ made when only he and Annalise were around. Surely they should be too old for this now. Jake searched through the long grass for the companion arrows. Recently, TJ had adopted 6-inch nails as arrow tips, taping them on with duct tape, and Jake imagined one of those through his shin bone. He considered marching down to the lake. TJ should be here helping, not frolicking with his girlfriend. There were 3 sharpened sticks in the long grass, and one did have a nail. 2 blown-apart L&P bottles from TJ's dry ice escapades, and the 1 decent cricket ball. The kids just didn't look after things, or clear up after themselves, even though their mother was a teacher. He undid the catcher, scooped up the matted grass that fell out, and decided to throw this load down the bank into the reserve. As he pushed the earmuffs down to his neck,